Broken Brain is sponsored by Give a Derm, excellent and 100% natural skincare products. Go to www.giveaderm.com. Make sure to use the code BrokenBrain at checkout for a 10% discount.
The Broken Brain.
Recording in progress.
And welcome back to The Broken Brain. So glad to have you all listening out there in podcast land. This is your host, Dwight, of course, and I'm coming back to you for this week's dose of mental health, well-being, and in this case, specifically, success, goal-driven behavior, accomplishments, and just basically kicking all kinds of ass all over the place. Not to build up an expectation of this episode, but you know what? I am, because it's going to be fantastic. I am so glad to be joined by Anton Varman, who is, how did I do on the name there?
Yeah, you did great. You almost sound a Northern European.
Oh, yes.
Even could, yeah.
I try to sound a little less typically American. That's always my goal with certain things, but
nothing wrong with that, you know.
Yeah, Anton is the host, the creator of the Instagram channel Anton in Japan. If I got that right, that's the title. And you're author of the upcoming book as well. What's the title again?
It's called Free Houses in Japan, and it's basically a book about what I do with the old houses that I buy and renovate in Tokyo.
That's what got me. I think it was just on a random Reels or something that I first saw, and I was like, "This is wild! Oh, look at this! This guy renovated a house in Japan," and I thought the practical stuff. But as I watched more and more, and this is why I wanted to have you on the show, especially, I found your stories to be quite inspirational as you took a dream, turned it into a goal. All kinds of things that have gotten your way we're going to get into, but I just really admire the story for that purpose of anyone who's maybe, for me, I don't know that I'm going to ever buy a house in Japan, but I find it's super interesting just because it's very inspirational to me how you have approached overcoming all these obstacles as they've come up. I find it quite amazing, actually.
Well, thank you very much. It wasn't that easy in the beginning, but like now my last project, my last house is kind of done, and I feel, I'm very happy. I have free time, you know. When you work so hard for something for a long time, then suddenly that stops, and now I'm busy with social media instead. So
yes, well, and I'm glad that and the book and everything. That's exciting that you have that. I tell everybody a little bit about how you kind of got started in this. I'm fascinated to hear a little bit of how and what drew you to Japan. You're not, for those that aren't watching the video part of this, you're not from Japan originally. I know they couldn't tell that from anything else.
I'm not Japanese, but I love Japan. It's a pleasure being here. Every day is an adventure.
Well, Brad, you're from Sweden, right? I just want to make sure I remember.
I'm originally from Stockholm, Sweden, and I came here for the first time in 2015. I have a long career in fashion modeling. Mm-hmm. So I lived in New York for about 2 years, and I've traveled to London, Milano, like Europe, everywhere, kind of like the big cities.
Yeah.
And then modeling brought me to Japan in 2015 for about 2 months.
Okay.
And I just loved it. Every day was an adventure. Like, the food was great. It was clean. It was safe. People were really nice. And it was no matter how long you stayed here, like, you never fully understood. Like, American culture, Swedish culture is very similar, and it's very direct. You ask someone, you get a straight up answer. Where's the party? And you'll get, oh, the party is over there. Here in Japan, it's so secretive, and I feel like you need to. I always wanted to know and learn more about society, about the culture, about how to behave, how to just be. And in order to do that, I realized I needed to be here. I needed to live my life here.
Yeah. Did you find that aspect, the more of the kind of a mysterious element, to be a little bit more your style then?
Yeah, I do believe so, but I think it all goes hand in hand because I mean, imagine if everything was mysterious, but you were in kind of an offensive and dangerous spot. Like that would be like a nightmare, right?
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha.
But
So that
I feel
pairs
like
with the
Japan
safety.
is
Yeah.
so safe. The food is great, and it was so mysterious. And you just walked into a back door of a small building, and they had the most amazing ramen you could ever eat, or the most amazing sushi, or and that was my like first impressions of Japan, and it was like living in a dream. I thought, and
Okay. That makes more
but some back
sense.
context,
Yeah. When you
yeah,
describe it that way, it's more of a curiosity rather than
I
because yeah,
think
like you
that's
said,
the right word.
yeah, without safety, it
But
would just be a nightmare then.
but plus alpha, that's a Japanese word. Like I'm mixing my English. I feel like being in Japan, like you kind of lose your English and your abilities to choose words.
Yeah. Do you speak
Because every
Japanese?
I speak
Yeah.
Japanese, yeah. So lately now with the channels, I started to pick up my English again. I mean, I lived in New York for a few years, and I think my English probably peaked back then. And then you move here, and my friends around me, I have American friends. I have a lot of American friends, but in order for Japanese people to understand, they're not native in English. And in order for them to understand you, you kind of need to simplify your language.
Hmm.
And you need to start speaking in words rather than in sentences sometimes. Um, so yeah, I started reading books in English again. I started watching more American TV series, American movies again.
Yeah. Does it?
So kind of adapting the American culture again now,
Uh-huh.
and that kind of piques my curiosity as well. I've been living here since 2019, and I've been like staying away a little bit from Western culture and kind of like immersing myself in Japan. And now I'm bringing back the Western again, and
Yeah.
it's
How does
fun.
that feel?
I feel I feel like that's what studying is, and that's what studying should be. Like I enjoy studying in school, but if you have something that directly affects you, it kind of it kind of vibrates more with me and it's easier to learn. That was how I learned Japanese as well.
Hmm.
I started in language school, but it was so boring. You learn from a book and you learn to speak like a book as well.
It's a lot of programs in some schools that they do the kind of total immersion, and they're
Yes.
trying to teach kids. And when you're
Uh-huh.
artificially creating that in a school environment, it's very difficult to keep it pure, I think. But when you're living somewhere, obviously, it's not that hard. You just walk down the street, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like I was really obsessive with learning, I think. So it didn't take me too long until I was I'm still not fluent. I don't think I will ever be fluent, but like I can get around in any situation basically. I can read, I can write, I can
Okay.
speak, I can listen. But never signed up. I started in Japanese language school, but it was so boring. It was mostly Italian and French people speaking to each other in their mother tongue, and they were there for the Japanese visa. Like Japanese immigration can be quite strict, and they were not there to learn. And I was there to learn. I had my real job. I had modeling, and I had my visa from the agency then back at the time.
So
And I paid
then there's a divide both language and then philosophically too, because they're not even there for the
exactly.
same reason, and you can't talk to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your reason for being in the school? And my reason was I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And then I figured like, oh, I might as well be in an izakaya, drink beer with Japanese people. And
Yeah.
then I can eat good food and I can enjoy culture, a cultural exchange. And I've seen Europe, I've seen Italy, I've seen France, and now I'm in Japan. I want to learn about Japan.
Huh. You seem like you seem like a person who is very interested in life. I find
Yes,
I
I
think
think
of that a
that's
lot.
a good
Where
word.
some people say, they want to be an interesting person, but I think it's far more fascinating to talk to an interested person, someone who's paying attention to the things around them and has a sense of wonder or passion around the things. And at least that seems like that's your personality. Has that always been true?
I think so. It's important to be interested, I think. And it's important to be interested, and it's important to listen, I think. I think if you just listen to people, like, people will become your friend. People will respect you.
It's
You
so
listen, you ask questions, and yeah, no one will dislike you. And it doesn't matter how bad of a question it is. Like, if you ask someone a question about themselves or what they enjoy doing, people will enjoy talking to you.
yeah. Yeah, it's
And it's
interesting. You hook
enjoyable as
into a
well to
sense
listen.
of that values and passion, and people want to tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think Europeans and Americans, we love talking about ourselves.
Yes.
But I don't think Japanese people love to talk about themselves in the same way. They're more protected in a way. So it's harder to, in Japanese they say kabe o butsukaru. It's like to hit their wall.
What's
Like to
you explain that concept a little? When they hit their wall, like that's their like a boundary, like a
so like you
privacy.
hit the wall, and like you break their wall. And then they, like, someone opens up, right? So people are very protective in the
Oh,
beginning.
okay,
If they
yeah, yeah,
know
I
you,
gotcha.
like an in and out group society. And once
Yeah.
you're in, like, people will open up, and then you can ask questions and talk.
So really, like, there's a high value of privacy. Then is that one of the
Yeah,
cultural values that you enjoy there?
exactly.
Yeah.
And talking about privacy, it's I don't know if this is weird in Sweden. We have, like, for example, like, you have a Swedish friend who lives in Stockholm somewhere. You Google his name and his address and phone number will come up like this.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
No, and in Japan, like, you would never tell anyone, like, the area you're living in. Like, the privacy here
Wow.
is insane.
So it would be easy to, and I know this is an alien concept, but as an American, it would be easy to offend people in that country. I guess. Oh wait, no, you could plug that into almost any country. Americans are pretty good at finding ways to be offensive. It's one of our cultural values. But no, but realistically, though, even a well-intentioned person coming from a more Western culture would be like, "Oh, where you live? Where are you from?" And would those be then considered or feel like kind of invasive questions? Like, "Oh, what's going on here?"
I think both yes and no, but I think you get the gaijin card, like, the, okay, you're a foreigner, you don't understand the rules, and you get the cards of, like, oh, get out of jail kind of.
Okay.
So you're allowed to be more rowdy. You're allowed to be a foreigner. You are allowed to make mistakes, like, on a societal level.
Gotcha.
Things that, like, it wouldn't be weird if you didn't understand it, I think.
So
Especially in Tokyo and bigger cities. But if you go to
okay.
rural Japan, like, people would probably, like, look at you. Hey, what's going on here? Who's that?
So if you were to approach, like, how would you strike up a conversation? It sounds like you got to learn a whole new, obviously, set of social mores and expectations. So what kinds of things are considered? Just questions. You mentioned listening, but what kind of questions would you ask if you're getting to know someone there then?
Like, it's the same. Like, there are a lot of curious Japanese people too, I think.
Okay.
And you kind of realize that from, like, by being here for a long time, you always get, when a Japanese person wants to approach you and start talking to you, it's always the same questions they ask. But I guess it's the same in the US and in American English as well. Like, oh, hey, how are you? Oh, I love your shirt. I love your. It's more of compliments about your personality, I think. In Japanese, as a foreigner here, you always get complimented for, oh, your Japanese is so good.
Oh.
Your skin is so white.
Oh.
The way you're using your chopsticks are so good. Like, they compare their culture with your culture, and then they find something to talk about. Where else, like, in the US, you would assume that someone was American, and then you start talking, and then you realize I have a Swedish accent, and then someone, like, comments on my accent, and that's it. And then you start talking about normal things.
And that's your characteristic now, as you are right now.
Yeah. And being in Japan as a foreigner, like, this kind of, like, oh, you're a foreigner, I'm Japanese, that doesn't go away for the first 30 minutes. It's more like cultural differences, and
Yeah.
I'm a foreigner in Japan. This is your ground. Teach me about your ground.
The concept of breaking the wall, or some people might say coming out of your shell, or whatever it is that, we all requires some level of safety before we do. But in this case, on a cultural level, there's some value placed in taking and investing time and energy into the getting to know you bit before really opening up. It's interesting. It's interesting to say. And you mentioned that you liked that about the culture, that was something that, and I assume obviously you mentioned a few other things as well that you like about it. Were there any things that are not present that you liked to get away from, if that makes any sense? Like, are there any parts of Western culture that you're like, ooh, I'm glad they don't do that here?
Bureaucracy. Japanese bureaucracy can be pain in the ass, especially with like building houses and dealing with municipalities, and if everything is so slow. But I think it's the same anywhere in the world. Swedish municipalities can be incredibly slow, Japanese municipalities as well. It's just that I'm experiencing it firsthand in Japanese for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think it would be the same in Sweden, to be honest.
Sure.
Okay, I need a building permit. I need to find someone. I need someone from the municipality to sign off a document, and it will take like 4 weeks. But I don't know for what. But
Right.
I think it's because I'm doing it for the first time in this language.
And that's got it. Yeah, that whole thing. I've thought this before about going to some other place, some other land. If it's more, the more culturally different it is, some of those intimidating things are even doing things that I do every day. Like I'm weird the way I think about details, but I've thought, I would be okay in probably anywhere in America, Canada, or Europe, most places. I think if you airdrop me into a big city and I really need to go to the bathroom, I could probably figure it out, right? In a whole nother culture, though, I'm like, I don't really know. I'll be honest. I mean, even in Sweden, you have a lot of people. So if you drop me where your hometown, I might or might not go. I don't know the cultural expectation. Is it, because even difference from where I live to New York City, you don't walk in most businesses in New York City and expect that they're going to let you use a public restroom without either being a customer or you got to put coins in it or something. And anyway, I just don't know the culture there enough to say, hey, can I make a phone call? Can I use the bathroom? What's rude? What's not rude? Little things like that. Right?
Yeah.
That I'm used to going to the bathroom. I do it a lot. I did it right before this call. Not, TMI for everyone out there, but just to say, oh, where do I go in a public place to say, where's amenities? I don't really know how to ask for them or where they are. And it goes beyond just the language even, right?
But with that said, I remember this as a very fascinating point about Japan. You ask someone for directions, or you're asking someone for, where is the bathroom? Where is this restaurant? And it's happened so many times that the person you're asking, they will follow you to the restaurant.
Oh,
make sure you're actually getting there. And it could be like a 200-400 meter walk. Where else in Europe or in the US, like, oh yeah, it's over there.
I freak out when an employee does that at a store, just because I'm never expecting it. It's nice, right? If they're like, oh yeah, I think it's on aisle 6. Come on, and it's like, oh, you're coming with me. Like, wow, that's a huge gesture. But out on the street, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Japanese people are very friendly people.
That's good. And that's what I'd always heard. Yeah.
But with bureaucracy, it could be something needs to be done the Japanese way. You're signing up for I'm talking about this in the book, for example. Like, you're signing up for a phone service, but in order to sign up for a phone service, you need a rental contract. But to get the rental contract, you need a phone service. So it's like a cat and mouse game that goes round and round, and you're like, and that's something a lot of foreigners have a hard time with here.
Yeah.
And especially with the language barrier, like you could face some pretty stupid problems.
And taking the time to listen then becomes an even more important character attribute.
Oh yes.
So this is where I wanted to get into this a little. So you decided, it sounds like you're already an adventurous person, world traveler, international man of mystery, all that, right? No, but you decide, I want to live here. I want to give this a go. I want to really immerse myself in this culture. So you get there. Were you already did you already know about this dynamic I didn't know that there are low to no sort of cost housing options to purchase homes there that are very, very inexpensive. Did you know that already, or how did
So
you
when I
find out about
started,
this?
like, I was very obsessive with learning Japanese, right? And learning a language is not only about learning the words and how they speak, right? It's about like you need to try and learn the culture as well. And the demographic in Japan, it's like the population is declining and what problems comes from that. Okay, yeah, houses, like the abundance of empty houses. And I studied Japanese, and I met some really crazy people, as like foreigners who's been here for a long time. Japanese people are very afraid of real estate. Like, oh no, they don't look at real estate in the same way since it depreciates here. A
That's
30-year-old building, it's
that's
torn down
fascinating.
and built something brand new. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, because that's something that I mean is just that's a very, excuse the term, foreign concept. I think to those of us, especially where I'm from, it's like there's a lot of talk about that, either cost of housing and going up,
Mhm.
trying to buy instead of rent. All this is like people think about it a whole lot, but the homes tend to depreciate in value, which is a
Depreciating
alien
value,
concept to a lot of people.
and new is considered better than anything else. There have been like
Hmm.
10, 15 times I've been to friends' houses and, oh, this house is new. No, it's not new. It was built like 5, 6 years ago. I'm like, yeah, well, that would have been a new house in Sweden.
Sure.
Like the house I grew up in Stockholm it's built in 1909. So, and it's perfectly fine. You just maintain it
Hmm.
and keep it up to date.
Right.
I must so Japan has earthquakes. It has a climate that's very different from Sweden. So they've done this to, yeah, they're stimulating the economy in this way.
I see.
It's expensive to maintain, and the renovation culture isn't there, but the culture of housemakers, like just tearing it down and build something brand new, like they have so many companies
Interesting.
pursuing this here.
So demolishing, building, selling, that's the real estate market and the
Exactly.
attitude there. And just like so many things, it's so interesting to me how subjective things are that we just down to our very guts, we assume that the way
Hmm.
things go in our culture. And as a therapist, I see this a lot, even on the individual family level. People, I just the other day I had someone literally say, "Well, you don't know what's normal until you go out and see other families and go, oh, wait a minute, we're not normal." And you see this
What
where
is normal though?
what is normal, right? That's the subjective nature of things. Is what's wrong with it being different? Nothing inherently, but we're conditioned to think this is how this works. And when someone's like, no, that's very foundational for you, but it doesn't have to work that way. What? That sometimes is one of the biggest obstacles people have to accomplishing goals is even more than the practical obstacle is the emotional resistance to
Mhm.
going with it, I guess would be one way to say. When did you make the decision to say, all right, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to buy
So,
property
so I
here.
moved here in 2019,
Yeah.
and I got my first unit within a year. It was a really rundown one. It wasn't free, but in American money, in US dollars, it would have been about, yeah, $90,000 for
Okay.
like a 40 square meter apartment in like the biggest city in the
And
world,
right,
10
right.
meters
I was
from
going
the
to say
cross. Like,
major city. That's
yeah.
pretty crazy low.
And
Yeah.
and it was a bit run down, but like, yeah, this is nothing you can't fix, I thought. So I got it, and then I just had to learn how to renovate and like navigate the market here. Like,
Mhm.
because the first shocking thing was, okay, how do I get rid of trash?
Yeah,
It's
tell everybody about that. This is wild.
unbelievable. It's unbelievably difficult. It's so if you've ever been to Japan or Tokyo, you've like walked the streets and it's so clean. It's like there's no trash on the ground. Maybe in Shibuya, Shinjuku, in central areas, but they have no trash cans. But despite that, it's incredibly clean.
Hmm.
And they're tearing down like buildings and building new. And you see like they're shipping out like the old building material. And but like where does it end up in landfill? Like That's is a good question, right? So I started gutting this place, and for me to keep working, I needed to throw it up. But all my friends were in the fashion industry, basically, and no one knew anything about construction or dealing with waste. So I needed to run. I called around. My Japanese wasn't that good at the time. I only lived here for like 7-8 months or something.
And you'd been doing this. You got started. Was it you didn't know yet how tricky it was going to be to get rid of the junk?
No, I had no idea. I had no idea. So I bought some weird white bags and about 150 of them, and I poured in all the dust and trash and the, what do you call it? The sekkobodo in Japanese. It's like the plaster boards.
Oh, okay, like drywall and such. Yeah.
Yeah. And then someone came and I paid $1,500 to throw 150 bags away.
Wow. Okay. What do you do
And
with regular? I mean, just regular trash. Is there like a trash pickup for just your normal kitchen bag you take
Yeah,
out
so
every
in my
week or
area,
something?
there is like burnable trash is going Tuesdays and Friday mornings. And then, yeah, there are dedicated days for that. But if there's
Okay.
something that's bigger or longer than 30 centimeters, you need to buy a sticker from the convenience store. And then you need to call for pickup from the municipality.
Wow. That's
And
not
that
very
can take
big.
up,
Yeah.
yeah. And you cannot burn it. I get those comments so much on my channels. Like, why don't you just burn your trash? Why don't you, yeah, just go out in the forest and burn it? I'm like, first of all, you cannot burn anything like this. Second of
Yeah.
all, like, then you need to get a car. I need to rent a car. And then third of all, that's very fucking illegal. Where can I go and do this?
Right. No, that also strikes me. Who knows? I don't know who's making those comments, but having grown up in a city environment myself, we couldn't even set off like sparklers on the 4th of July or something. I mean, there's rules about that in large cities in particular, but so
But that's
kind of
also a
crazy
city
suggestion.
where you grew up is you probably have space. Like the land
Oh,
of the house.
yes, much wider streets and stuff. We'd
Yes.
say even
The
in
land I'm
really
sitting
urban,
in,
yeah.
the land of the house I'm sitting in right now is 63 square meters. What's that? 600 square feet. And that's the land. And on top of that, there's a house.
Yeah.
My neighbor's house is literally 20 centimeters away. What is that? That's like one foot away.
Yeah. Huh. So it's right. Yeah, exactly. Right up on top of each other. That to me sounds like someone with a big backyard that's like I could just drag an oil drum back there and just burn it or whatever, like.
Yeah, you don't have it. Like if you would have that space in Tokyo, like you would be a millionaire.
Right. And I imagine still the huge plumes of smoke coming up would probably be a
Oh
concern
yeah,
to
like
people.
the police would be here in a minute. Like Tokyo has a history of fires, so like yeah, they're very very aware of any risk. Like
Yeah.
fire hazard would be like eliminated like within a second.
What other kind of obstacles did you run into along the way? That's a pretty big one right there. But what you mentioned bureaucracy, trash
Bureaucracy,
hauling.
trash hauling, finding good contractors and people who knew. Like I learned from zero basically. Like how do you source good material? What are you allowed to do? Finding good contractors, finding good recycled material, because obviously I was on a budget, obviously, so finding good materials, cheap, and then logistics as well. Okay, you find some good like wood that you want to get. It's a 4 meter long wood plank. How do you transport it to your house?
Yeah, even with a vehicle, it's not like the really big streets and stuff too, is what it's
Yeah.
sounding like. Just even
Like the
carrying
streets
it
here
down
are
there.
tiny.
Yeah.
So,
Huh. How'd you do it?
but yeah, you just had to talk to the people you bought it from usually. And that's what I realized. The community will always help you here. Like you contribute here and they will give back to you.
Mhm.
My lumber here has helped me tremendously. Like introducing me to great carpenters. They've also introduced me to some not so good carpenters and plumbers. But then they always correct their mistake. I'm sorry, Anton, for that. And then they introduce me to someone else who actually can pull the job off.
Do you find are there less things like service people or even I was just thinking even like availability of hardware stores and such, is that less since
Oh, yeah.
there's not the culture around it?
they're like, so with no, so Japan doesn't really have a renovation culture. Like it would not be what do you call the big home center in the US? Home
Yeah,
Depot.
I have like there's a Home Depot. I could literally like sitting in my chair here to walking through the front of Home Depot would probably take me 6 or 7 minutes.
I'm jealous of you.
Add
I'm
another
jealous.
10 and I'd be in a Lowe's, which is the same thing, just
Ah.
a different brand.
So there is a hype going on. Before I started doing YouTube in English, I had a Japanese channel doing like DIY stuff. And people were really interested because there were not really that many DIY YouTubers in Japanese in Japan. So you could feel that like there was a demand for it, and people were really interested in DIY and working with their hands and working with woodwork, because traditionally and historically, Japan has fantastic woodwork. Like their furniture and the way they're building like older houses. They build fucking temples without using a single screw. It's
Right.
fantastic.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, they're kind of known for that, which is
yeah,
there where that would be surprising to say, oh, but that's not how that doesn't equal. Oh, there's a corner store every 20 minutes down the road where I can buy
yeah.
drywall and this kind of exact tool and whatever.
So it's very specialized in what they're doing. But with that said, like they're building so much. So I was lucky, maybe last year they opened up a huge home center about 20 minutes away from me. Before that, I had to go an hour to get to a big home center. And those home centers are not in the same category as an American home center. Everything is more petite and everything is more detailed, I would say.
Mhm.
In the US, at Home Depot, you could buy like a big kit of like what? The 15 tools that you use the most for like $500.
Sure.
Like I've never seen a kit like that here. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
buy
and if you stock the clearance section, you can get all kinds of
yes.
stuff. Yeah.
And but yeah, they're building in a different way. Like I need to be really careful who I'm asking for advice. If I'm asking my American friends, they're building very similar to a Swedish builder, but a Japanese builder would like maybe cut corners or do it in a better way. Or so you need to trust your guts in the end.
Hmm.
And if there is a contractor you're paying, you need to be aware that he's doing it for not only for the money, but doing it for your good. Like he wants the final product to be good, right?
Yes, yes. Well, and it's interesting because you have that same challenge anywhere to an extent, but actually finding when there's just not as many people around. And I love the advice basically that you're giving here. De facto advice is to be, if you're connected with the community, you're listening once again, you're curious. That's how it sounds like that's how you were overcoming most of these obstacles, is by trying to be a good student of the world that you're in, the situation and the culture that is actually around you, instead of going, no, it's supposed to work this way or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying.
Well, I wondered if you had feedback for people out there about an approach or the approaches that you do take to try to overcome obstacles. Like, obviously you didn't say like, nah, bag this isn't working. I'm going to move or go somewhere else or just rent it somewhere, something different. You kept persevering. What do you think got you over the hump of the obstacles?
I think it is to have a vision. Where do you want to be and what do you want to do? And I think kind of like DIY and renovation, it kind of demonstrates, like it's the same with the life, you have your canvas as your body, and then you have your wall as the DIY place that you wanna make this look nice. And if you have one setback, like you're not gonna give up, right? You're gonna persevere and continue until that wall is done, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in the end, it's never 100% done anyway. But it's the same with us, right? We
Well,
will
there's
never
an
be
acceptance
fully
piece
educated.
then. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's perseverance, trying to alter your approach, but also I love that extra piece you put on there is it's never really done or it's never really
Yeah.
perfect. And my mom likes to say, never let perfect be the enemy of good. In other words,
Exactly.
it's like, oh, the wall's not perfect, but it's done. It's done for now, and it looks good, and I'm happy. I'll move on to the other thing, and whatever. Yeah, that's it's
But I think that's from
admirable.
my grown up as well. Like my parents, they always started renovation projects, but they never finished. I
Oh.
think my finishing rate compared to my dad is probably higher.
Mhm.
And maybe that, maybe that's some success related as well. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dad, but
Well, we have your dad on the line here. Let's bring him in, and
yeah, let's call him
let's
in.
work this out. No, but it's interesting what you do learn as because approaching it from a standpoint of being where you were in this situation. I think we take everything that we absorb growing up in things, and yeah, certainly, like you said, that gives me hope that my kids will someday finish projects if they have a father who maybe starts more projects than he finishes. So then there you go. They'll be doing that.
Do you
Well,
have any fun projects you're working on?
I a lot of my projects are somewhat podcast related. I've been working on a bunch of those things. I'm actually just for fun. I started reading this book. It's actually over here. Here, I'll show it to you. It's I don't know if it makes it backwards.
How to sharpen pencils.
It was made by he's a comedian and a comedy writer, but he also apparently learned this like artisanal way to sharpen pencils with like a knife and sandpaper and things to make it like this perfect point and not just turning it and so it's completely unnecessary in the modern world, but also very interesting. So like I'm just reading this book about it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a pocket knife and a pencil and follow this guy's advice, just see what it looks like, what it feels like to do it. And for
It
no
sounds
other
like
reason.
a Japanese
Yeah.
thing, though. Like,
Oh, yeah?
like how to sharpen pencils.
Yeah.
Like Japanese, like traditional, like artisans, they're very niched. And within the carpentry world, there's like 30 different kind of shokunin-san, like people working on different things. There's obviously electricians and plumbers, and then there are people specialized in just
Interesting.
like putting together like cabinets, and then just putting together a unit bath or a kitchen, or and I feel like that's a very Japanese thing to kind of
That's good.
maniac.
I'll take that as a compliment. I've been trying to expose myself to new experiences. I hit a certain age, and I'm like, I decided I want to do 50 new things before I turn 50. I'm in my 40s. So
That's
there you
great.
go. So yeah, just kind of just something to remind myself that the world is kind of fun, right? That there's little things about it that are whimsical or interesting. It reminded me of what is that Japanese art of they repair porcelain with like glue that has gold in it. Stuff is that
Um,
kintsugi?
Kinski, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You probably said it.
yeah,
Right.
that's really cool.
Yeah. It's very.
I've
It's very
I've never
interesting.
like done it on my
Oh no.
myself, but like
Yeah.
it looks amazing. It
Yeah,
looks
so
really cool.
that's interesting where the culture focuses on some of that. There's an artistic approach to the things that they are doing, it sounds like, which actually kind of, as you're saying that, it kind of makes sense to where new things would have a certain value because you're creating, and whereas but then you're bringing this extra insight of this this project-based culture that you bring with you. So it's interesting how that all works together in your new chapter in your life and everything. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, but it's also fun to be kind of a pioneer in something that's very unexplored here in Japan. And renovation companies are like they're popping up here and there now, I feel. So I think renovation is on the rise here, and I think sustainability wise, I think it's just great,
They're probably all watching
People have-
your channel. That's why.
The renovation, it's so big all over the world, and like why wouldn't it be big here?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thought that I've always had.
Well, I know that we're coming up on your time, and once again, I'm so grateful, especially with our huge time difference. You're getting up early in the morning, so that we're able to meet at this certain time where it's evening here and morning there. A couple of quick things before you go. I want to give you a chance to tell everybody where to follow you. I also always ask all the guests for an idea or a suggestion for people out there. For something that people can do to get involved with giving back to either their own community or a cause. Could be an organization, a nonprofit, could just be a nice way to treat people around you. What do you find is something that's near and dear to your heart?
Ooh, that was probably the hardest question today. I mean, community, like just ask your friends how they're doing. and then listen to them. I think that's your inner community, and like people, hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? I think that's the most important thing you can do to your friends. What do they need? What are they in need of? Like, are they in need of money? Are they in need of time? Are they in need of love? Like, what do they need? You know?
And sometimes just someone who asks how you're doing and really cares makes such a big difference. Last month, I was involved with a couple of different podcasts, and I did an event about overdose awareness and addiction awareness. And funny enough, that came up a lot, which was if you, instead of saying, hey, if you have a loved one who's having addiction problems, we just were saying, just assume that you do. Just assume there's people out there who are having either mental health, addiction, or loneliness, or some other thing, and just go ahead and start paying attention and listening. So it's a great preventative measure for health problems as well as for community building and relationship building. So that's great. That's great feedback for people, advice for people. Well, where do they find you? What's the best place that they can go to order your book? Pre-order at this point, right? It's coming out.
Pre-order right now. 7th of November will be the official launch date. So there's some formatting things that needs to be done, but that's the editor's choice, the editor's work. But Amazon.com, free houses in Japan. Pre-order is available right now for the ebook. Starting the 7th of November, the book will be available for paperback as well.
Okay.
And then eventually hardcover as well.
Wonderful.
All my social medias are Anton in Japan, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And yeah, you find my contact information there as well.
Awesome. Well, Anton, thank you so much. Best of luck with the book and everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to see you again, man.
Thank you for listening to the Courtemp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Courtemp Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.